I just finished watching the newest season of King of the Hill. Here are some of the best moments. Starting us off with Bobby accidentally butt dialing Peggy. The scene was so funny because it just happened when Bobby just happens to be hooking up with a random college girl. And I like the pure kind of excitement that Peggy gets when Bobby calls her. But the kind of best part is the fact that she realizes that it's a butt dial that he accidentally called. He didn't mean to call her. But then she hears like the noises in the background and doesn't realize kind of what's going on. But then you see like the kind of subtle realization of what's actually happening kind of grow on her face a little bit when she actually realizes that like, okay, this might be something that she doesn't need to be listening to, but her kind of naive mind just makes it so that she doesn't want to actually accept that's what the actual scenario is. She just wants to say, oh, he's working late. And then you just see Hank kind of like rolling over, trying to ignore the situation altogether, not really knowing if he's just annoyed by the phone call and trying to sleep, or annoyed by the fact that Peggy is being clueless again on purpose, how she normally is. Number 2 was when Hank discovered Bill through his window. It's so funny seeing the pure like horror, like oh my god moment on Hank's face when he realizes the actual situation, and then realizing how it gets even more crazy and ridiculous, realizing how Bill had been staying in his house ever since COVID. He hasn't left and he just gained so much weight. He's just taking over the entire bed. It's just so like random and crazy, but it's like real, kind of realistic with the type of character the Bill is. It's so funny. Next was when Hank and Bobby started brewing their own beer at home, and Peggy was constantly trying to push them into naming it after her, naming it Peggy Ale. It starts off with her just being proud to get Hank and Bobby to actually work on something together as father and son, but then like instantly it transitions into her making it about herself like she normally does. And then there's that look of genuine awkwardness between Hank and Bobby when they agree to name it after her, just the best. And then it continues getting even more kind of funny and awkward when Hank and Bobby end up competing against each other in this beer competition, and Peggy's still trying to push to have at least one of them name it after her. But the best is at the end when she finds out that neither of them named their beers after her. She just has that big,
Are you kidding me?
just total freak out moment that's just so funny because it's so like in her own head that they were listening to her and agreeing, but neither of them actually did. She just has to kind of live out her own fantasy, but none of it actually works for her. Just that big freak out is so funny. Next is more of a kind of like, ugh, oh no, type of moment than a overly funny moment. And that's when Hank finds out that Bobby is cooking using a charcoal grill instead of using propane in his restaurant. And if you're like me and you grew up watching King of the Hill, then you definitely know how important propane and propane accessories are for Hank Hill. So when Hank actually finds out that Bobby is using charcoal instead of propane, it's such a kind of like overwhelming, devastating moment for him that he doesn't even have the wherewithal to even actually fully listen to Bobby as to why he's using charcoal instead. I mean, it ends up being okay by the end of the episode once Hank kind of learns the importance of keeping authentic history. But that initial kind of shock and awe of just disappointment from your father definitely hits home for all millennials. Next was when Bobby and his team go to confront the charcoal salesman. This was so funny to see on all their faces that the store owner was legitimately a black man, and it just confused all of them. Especially once kind of Bobby said that he was looking for a Mr. Yoshido, and then Chang kind of jumps in and says, yeah, like a little short man, black hair, Asian, and like the store owner just looks at him just blank faced and like instantly annoyed, and how he has to kind of like tell his story on how he grew up in Japan. He was adopted by Japanese people, hence why he has a Japanese last name. I found it so funny on how kind of Chang still continues to argue with him with his kind of douchebag energy, and how Bobby kind of has to hold him back from getting into an actual fight with a store owner. And then Bobby tries kind of just pleading with him to say like, I need the charcoal to make my business run, and he still won't sell it to him. And they're going to this kind of whole back and forth of like, like, what's going on? Why can't you? Like, why is this such a thing? That kind of back and forth between Chang and the store owner and Bobby trying to calm down the situation just kind of made the whole scene just like realistic, but also kind of outrageous, which is awesome. Next was when Bobby got swindled into having to buy a horse. It's funny because the car dealership, the owner, knows how like naive Bobby actually is, and he can just read him like a book and just manipulate him super easily. Especially because when he actually takes Bobby out to the barn where the horse is being held, he goes into this whole sob story on how the horse is gonna have to be put down because it's gotten too old and he's too old to take care of it. And he manipulates Bobby so much by even saying that the actual name of the horse is Bobby.
Real name's Bobby.
That's my name.
What?
Like, and how he falls for that is just so like naive but so funny. Because when Bobby does get back home and he shows the horse to him, Joseph is trying to refuse the horse altogether, and then he gets even manipulated by wanting to try to keep it himself just by the sheer idea of how cute the horse is. And then it kind of not only just shows his young adult being dumb, but then it just shows the connection that he has with the horse of actually being native, not white. So it's also that little subtle moment of him actually kind of seeing that his nativeness a little bit with still not understanding it to actually be true is also really fun. Next was Dale's crazy conspiracy theory about how Hank and Peggy got turned into Saudi Arabian spies. And this all starts because Hank kind of leads on a little bit that he actually kind of enjoys soccer. So this kind of leads Dale into his crazy conspiracy theory brain of his down a rabbit hole to the point of him trying to get audio and to try to mic Hank and Peggy's conversation. But of course, it doesn't go according to plan, and it goes a little crazy, a little haywire, to the point of things kind of getting overly convoluted and crazy, to the point that Dale kind of thinks that Hank is going to be kind of kidnapping the mayor for whatever reason. So therefore, Dale goes and kidnaps Hank himself to try to save the mayor. But the best part about this was when Hank kind of realized the situation, he kind of just went along with it because he's so used to Dale's kind of over-the-top conspiracy theory nonsense that he kind of just realized that that's just the best way, is just to accept what Dale's nonsense is, and that's just the best way to kind of get out of this ridiculous situation. So talking about Dale's crazy nonsense, that kind of brings us on to our next point of when Bobby had the rat problem in the restaurant. So he hires Dale to kind of get rid of it, to exterminate it. But of course, it's not just going to be something simple like a regular rat trap. No, Dale's got unique, interesting ideas. First of which is something that is pretty simple, pretty standard, which is something that actually kind of could work, which is like that piece of food at the end of the board just to make the rat kind of fall into the garbage can. Okay, a little out there, but not too bad. But then the idea transitions to something a little crazy of trying to get another rat with a bomb attached to it, follow the first one, and then they just explode and kill each other into a big mess. That's definitely a little crazier, a little more cartoony, but of course that doesn't work well either. And then going on to sexy rat. It's so like out there, so outlandish, so like who would think of such a thing other than Dale Gribble? But this ends up being the actual kind of funnier solution to the problem, because that ends up working at the end, which is so just bizarre, but it's such a cartoony, funny way of a solution to kind of make this work, and then ends up kind of tying together into the main story of the episode. Next was when Hank and Bobby were at the Dallas Cowboys football camp. They were doing some practice throws and catches, and Bobby actually he dropped a few, but he actually caught a couple and was actually doing decently well, and especially in comparison to the rest of the kind of team around them, to the point where Hank actually even complimented Bobby, which is pretty rare for Hank, to be honest. The part that makes this scene actually pretty funny is that just a few seconds later, you see Willow practicing with another random player. He's a random old man that can barely even do anything, but she catches the ball perfectly. She performs really well. She doesn't miss a single one, and it's like over exaggerated on kind of how well she actually is. And you see the support on Hank's eyes just glow so much brighter for her than even was with the compliment that he just gave for Bobby earlier. So I just found this kind of funny and interesting because it's another one of those son trying to impress his kind of stern dad type of moments that ends up being successful, but ends up kind of getting kind of washed away at the end. And since we're talking about Willow, that brings me on to my last and final scene, the part when she decides to go up to the Dallas Cowboy manager office and let loose her frustrations on her dad getting fired. Not only because of the just pure absurdity of what the scene actually is, but also just of how the scene was kind of put together, with like the crazy zoom in right on Willow's face, the cut to Hank and Bobby's face when they see kind of what's actually going on, and then you hear the of what actually just happened, and then of course the ultra wide when they go outside of the building and all you see is their silhouettes and Hank's reaction. King of the Hill is not normally that type of show that has absurd, crazy humor like that. It's normally just little moments, kind of comedic moments throughout an everyday lifestyle type of show. But this scene got me to actually legitimately laugh out loud because of the kind of like crazy, absurd randomness of what this actually is, especially in this type of show. Like you would expect it with something like Family Guy or like South Park, but King of the Hill is meant to be more down to earth, and a scene like this definitely threw me off guard. So there's some of the best, funniest, and interesting moments from the new season of King of the Hill. Have you seen the new season yet? Let me know in a comment below some of your favorite moments. And if you're like me and you used to watch King of the Hill as a kid growing up, let me know as well. Let's talk about some of the funniest moments from back then. It'd be nice to kind of go through some nostalgic moments. And if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. It definitely helps me out. And if you like me or any of the content that I make, maybe consider subscribing to the page. It'll help let you know when my next video comes out. But other than that, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.